Hey everyone, I'm Allison.
I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
And today we are talking about Quests Cannons, the Risen Islands. This is a game designed by Eric and Shannon Geller. The art is by all these people, and the game is published by Short Hop Games, and this is coming to Kickstarter in September 2021.
In Quests Cannons, you are a champion of one of the factions, and you're exploring newly arisen islands, getting to know what resources they produce, helping the islands become prosperous by trading those resources and shooting down your enemies.
Alright, so let's check it out. So here we have the setup of Quests Cannons for the free-for-all version. There are different setups in the rulebook for all the different player counts and modes of play. To see who chooses first, you roll a die. Whoever had the highest number will pick their character first, and then you go around the table selecting characters. The person who selected their character last will go first in the game. There are different factions, so there's these pigs, there's these geese, and then there's also the bunnies.
Each faction has a special ability, and each character has a unique ability. And each character also has some stats for their ship, with starting and maximum.
So in free-for-all, your goal is to be the first one with 15 prosperity in order to win the game. So our character is Valkyr Thunderfoot, and when you place them on the board, you can pick any of the starting spaces in free-for-all mode. If you're playing any other mode, you need to pick one of the starting spaces that match your faction. And you need to make sure that there's at least one starting space in between other players. So with Valkyr here, I've got my hearts and my stats. I start with 1 sail, 1 cannon, and everybody starts with 5 ammo, and then I can have up to 3 cargo available on my board. The other spaces are blocked. And then there's that max level that we talked about earlier. So the max number of sails I can have is 2, cannons 3, and cargo 6. And everybody gets 3 coins to start, and we'll talk about the rest of this board later.
On your turn, you get 3 action points to spend, and you can spend your action points on any combination of the following: move, gather, and attack. So if I choose to spend an action point to move, I can move my character 1 space per action point I want to spend. So here I can spend 1 action point and move 1. If I spend another action point, I can move another space. I can extend my movement by spending sails on my ship board. If I spend a sail, I can move 1 extra space. When it's used, it's flipped over, and this will refresh at the start of your next turn. If I had multiple sails, I can use as many as I wanted to.
However, if you have stopped your movement for any reason, you cannot use a sail to start it. You must use an action point first in order to move again. So another action you can take is gather. So if you come across an island and you stop here with one of these question marks, you can flip it over. So on this tile I turned over canvas. I can collect canvas in my cargo spots on my board up to the number of spots I have available.
And at any time I can discard cargo off my board to make room for new cargo.
So I have room for 3 canvas, I might as well just take them. And all of those are only for the 1 action point. And if you are the first person to discover this area and flip over that token, you also get a coin. Another action is if you are on the same tile as an enemy, you can choose to fire on them. I can spend the number of ammo matching the number of cannons I have. Currently I only have 1 cannon, so I will spend 1 action to roll 1 ammo. Roll it up. And for every 4 pips that you see on your dice, it equals 1 damage. So I rolled a 5, they would get 1 damage for their ship. Whenever a ship takes damage, they take this little hull damage marker and put it on their board. And just to show you, you can put it right on top of your hearts. This would go on the enemy ship. So since I fired my cannon, I'm going to flip over my token, showing that it's spent. So my cannon is not available until my next turn. And since I did do a damage to my enemy, I would move up 1 on the prosperity track, and any ammo dice I used are discarded.
Your ship will sink if it can't take any more hull damage. The attacking player that causes the ship to sink will gain 3 prosperity. The attacking player also receives half of my coins rounded up, and when I sink, I also discard any cargo I have. If I had cards here, I would discard 1 of them, and if I had any map clue cards, I would discard those as well. If I sink without receiving damage from another player, then I lose 3 prosperity, and all the same things happen. I lose half my coins, I lose one of these 2 cards, and I lose my cargo. On my next turn, I'll then respawn at whatever starting space I started at.
And also when you respawn, you will receive 5 ammo.
So now that we know the various actions, let's talk about the different spaces on the board. First of all, you have these starting spaces around the edge of the board. These are where players start the game. When you're at the starting spot, you can take several actions that don't cost your action points. So you can do these actions for free. You can repair your ship, buy ammo, or sell various resources, loot cards, or map clues.
So there are 3 outpost spaces on the board. If a player's ship is here, they can also do the same actions as the starting space, along with upgrading their ship.
There are 3 trading posts around the board, at least in this setup. If I end my movement there, or if I start on that space, I can do several actions for free. I can trade different resources, I can repair, I can complete certain quests, or I can sell resources, loot, and map clues. You can check your player aid for the different types of trades you can do. There are also various islands around the board. As you can see, all the island tiles have this token with a question mark on it. If I'm the first person to end my movement on an island tile with this question mark token, I flip the token over, I gain 1 coin, and then that token becomes a commodity that you're able to gather at that island. So at this island, I can gather spice. Additionally, when I end a movement on an island, I gain 1 quest card, but we'll talk about that more in detail later.
Some of the other tiles out here are, these darker ones are stormy seas, and then these ones are treacherous seas. Anytime I want to move over stormy seas, it counts as 2 spaces. So I would either have to spend 2 of my action points, or spend an action point and a sail.
So if I move on to a treacherous sea, I have to roll my traveler's die, which is this blue die you'll receive at the beginning of the game. If I roll a 4, 5, or 6, like I just did, I succeed and I move to an adjacent space without spending an action point. And then I can use sails or action points to continue my movement. However, if I roll a 1, 2, or 3, I take 1 hull damage and my movement stops immediately. So I'd have to spend an action point to move off the tile and then keep moving.
So if you do fail, you get to have +1 to your next die roll. If you fail again, you'll have +2. You put your die there to remind you.
And if you succeed when you have the +1, then you don't get that bonus next time you end up on a treacherous sea. There's one other tile that's not included in this setup, but could be included in other setups, and this is the impassable terrain. And like its name suggests, you can't move onto or through this tile.
So now let's talk about the 3 different cards that are in the game. There's loot, quest, and map clues. So map clues are cards that you can gain at the trading post, and they give you different goals of places to visit. So this map clue says to go visit the Honeycomb Isle. In order to complete the map clue, you have to visit that island by spending 1 of your action points. And then when you visit, you are able to gain either 1 prosperity or 1 loot. And then should you travel and make it back over to your starting spot, any of the completed map clues that you have, you can turn them in and discard them, and you get 1 prosperity point for each completed map clue.
However, if I sink before being able to return to my starting space, I'll lose any map clues that I've completed, so I won't get that extra bonus for turning them in.
So next are the quest cards. You gain 1 of these if you end your movement on an island. And quest cards give you different objectives, so to deliver certain materials to certain places on the board, and you can gain different rewards, such as this one says 2 prosperity, 1 loot, and 2 coins. And you can have up to 3 of these in your hand. If you ever have more than that, you must discard some.
There are some quest cards that are different, like this one requires you to do 1 hull damage to an enemy ship. And finally we have loot cards. Loot cards can be gained in several ways. They can be rewards for quests or map clues, or you can trade for them at the trading post. There are 2 different types of loot cards, red, which are one-time use, and blue, which are ship equips. The one-time use cards will state when they can be used and have a temporary effect. Once you use them, they're discarded from the game. For the ship equip cards, they have a cost down here at the bottom. When you spend that cost, you could put the card on one of the 2 slots of your ship, and then you gain that benefit for the rest of the game as long as you have that card. There's also one more thing loot cards can do. You can discard a loot card to activate your faction ability.
That's the gist of all the rules. So again, once someone reaches 15 in the free-for-all for prosperity, they are the winner of the game. Just wanted to show you real quick that there are the different layouts. If you have a smaller player number, these tiles also flip over and they can make impassable areas, thus making the map smaller. And the other modes of this game are solo, co-op, and team mode.
And the mode that you choose will have a different amount of prosperity needed to win the game.
Okay, so that's how you play the game. Let's talk about how we feel about it. Bryce, what are some of the pros?
So I really like the artwork and kind of the theme of this game. And when I say that, we're just kind of scratching the surface with this prototype. It seems like there's going to be a lot more in this game, but that's just speculation by me. I don't know.
But I do like the lore of the game and how it builds up the story, and all the art is just gorgeous, and the board looks good. Table presence is great, and it's a prototype, so the boats aren't finished and a few other things, but I think it looks really awesome. And something else I like about Quests Cannons is there's a lot of adjustability and a lot of replayability. So if you have a smaller game or lots of people playing the game, you can change up the map. Or if you want it to be more competitive, you can make the map a little bit smaller by flipping the tiles over. And if you want to leave it just more friendly, you can play with the entire map with 2 people and you may not have much crossover. So just depending on what type of game you want to play, there's all those options for you. And there's solo, team, co-op, versus free play. There's so many options.
Yeah. I think one of the fun games we had was we played co-op and we had an AI. And man, those AIs were pretty nasty.
They can be. But yeah, and we played on the easy mode, and it was very close to us not winning, but then we ended up getting enough prosperity to blow it out of the water. But you can play on harder modes, and there's a lot going on here, and it's fun.
One thing I really like is how modular your ship is. You start off with some base stats, and they're okay, but you can add sails, or you could add more cannons, or you could add more cargo space. You can choose how you want to customize your ship, and it might influence what you go for, like what quests you do or whatever. So I like that aspect of the game.
Yes, it is very customizable, but I feel like if you want to be the one who does everything, you're not going to be able to do everything. You really have to pick and choose what you're going to upgrade or not. I've had games where I focused on sales, and so I was able to get in to do more quests and things, and that got me a lot of prosperity over time. But then I've had other games where I tried to, get more cannons, and then I've had other games where I just winged it with whatever I had and just dealt with it. So there's lots of different ways to play. And one of the upgrades that you can do for your ship are the sails, and I really liked that because if you had more sails, you were able to push your movement more because you only have the 3 action points. So that would let you push some of your movement so you could feel like you accomplish more things, or you're closer to your goal for that quest or the map clue.
But that does kind of lead us into one of our cons, and that is the rules can be a little confusing at first, especially with what is a movement, what constitutes the end of a movement, and then starting your movement back up. You had a little bit of trouble with this, and I admit it was confusing at first.
Yeah, I had a hard time at first with when you did movement and then you would stop movement, but your turn wasn't over, you would pause and then you can move again. I just had a little confusion on that, but that's just me. But I know this is a prototype, so the rulebook is obviously a work in progress, and it's March, and the game's coming out in September. So by the time you're watching this, the rulebook is probably going to be even better. Another possible con is there's a lot of setup with the game because you do have all those different tiles. Most of the tiles for your blue part of the map, the water, are groups of 3, so it's not all individual tiles, which is good because that would be a nightmare. So it does take a little bit of time, but I imagine they're probably going to do something with organization to help that setup be better. But that's one of the major cons I could think of is just it takes a little while to set things up.
I always ended up disappearing during setup.
That's probably why it took a while to set things up.
I never had that problem.
And the other con I could think of was the ships were sometimes a little bit fiddly, where they would kind of like fall over. But again, this is the prototype, so these are not finished components, so we may not even have that problem in the final product.
Yeah, I wasn't going to comment on that just because this is a prototype, and the ships, at least in this version, just seem pretty unfinished. It just felt like it was just a cut-out piece of wood.
Well, I mean, it did look like a ship.
It looked like a ship.
But I like that the character is part of the sail. I don't know if they're going to do that for the final game or not, but I thought that was kind of cool. But that's all the cons we could come up with. And all of our cons are the fact that it's the prototype and it's not the finished product. So there's that.
And like I said, there's a lot of content in the game already, and I'm speculating there's going to be more. It seems like it's set up for maybe a campaign mode. Again, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait to see when it comes out in September. But it just seems to me like there's going to be a lot more to this game, and I think it's great already as it is.
Okay, so those are our thoughts on Quests Cannons, The Risen Island from Short Hop Games. This is coming to Kickstarter in September 2021, and I think it's a really fun game. It's really thematic, and it looks great on the table, and I love that you can scale it for difficulty depending on who you're playing with. You can make it more friendly, or you can make it really competitive, and you can play against each other or with each other. Lots of different options, and they all work pretty well.
And I like that you can upgrade your ship in a fashion that suits your play style and suits what you want to do. And every style of play has a legitimate possibility of winning the game. There's no one style that seems better than another. And I think this is a great game worth checking out. And I'm excited to see what's in the final box come September.
So if this game looks like it's good for you, you should definitely check it out. We'll put the link down below in the description when we have that available.
And while you're down there, be sure to like and subscribe, and go check out our Instagram. We do a lot more gaming content on there as well.
All right, I'm Allison.
I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
Happy sailing!
Have fun! From beneath the surface of the ocean, a set of mysterious islands arise. Many of the inhabitants begin to leave their homelands. Okay.
I didn't think of it on the last one. Got this.
Got this city.
Doo-doo.
Built this city on
Quests
wheat
and
and ore.
cannons. Short hop, short hop.
Built this city on
Quests
wheat
and
and ore.
cannons.